Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's your friend Bats. My name is Jared, and today I want to talk about Mr. Dean Cain, uh, Mr. 1993 Superman from Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. And a lot of people don't like this show because it is cheesy, it's poorly written, and I guess, people discovering it nowadays don't like it because they don't like Dean Cain. And I understand that. That's fine. Uh, I grew up with this show. This was my first, real, real Superman thing that wasn't Super Friends. I knew that there was a movie as a kid, but I hadn't seen it then. And this was the TV show that my mom watched, and I watched it with her from time to time, and I would watch it on my own from time to time. And I like this show. Uh, I understand it's very aged. It's a product of its time and its budget, and it hasn't so much aged well visually. But if you can get past that, you could suspend your imagination of terrible 90s TV budgets for superhero products. You'll do just fine. But Mr. Dean Cain is very disliked by many people in geek spaces and Superman fandoms. And I understand why. He opens his mouth a lot and he says things that people don't like. And that's fair. You don't have to like what he has to say. You don't. And that's fine. Uh, However, I think what I want to get at is that we as Superman fans and just people in general just need to let people say things sometimes. And people need to be allowed to say stupid things that we as an that we disagree with. There are often times one of the reasons I don't use Twitter anymore is because I love reading comic books. And oftentimes I see on Twitter some comic book writers saying some really absurd, jerkish things about just anything. I've seen people be jerks to comic book creators and comic book creators be jerks to fans. And I've also partaked in being a jerk to a comic book creator and a comic creator being a jerk to me over silly politics things that happened back in 2016 through 2020. And it's so past that now. But we're still having this conversation where Dean Cain, and in my opinion, I believe that Dean Cain is objectively wrong in his statement. His statement is that the Superman movie is woke, and I don't know his quote exactly, but I know he's saying that the Superman movie's woke and the movie's about an immigration story, and that's a bad idea, and it's gonna affect the box office. Well, Mr. Dean Cain, it did not affect the box office. It's doing very well. This week on a Tuesday, it's doing well and it did very well on Monday. It actually broke records. I think it's the highest grossing film after opening weekend. It's like its best Monday, its first Monday. So hey, good on Superman and James Gunn and DC Studios for doing that. But when Dean Cain says that it was going to hurt the box office, he was objectively wrong. But when he said that Superman, telling an immigrant story with Superman is a bad idea, he's also wrong there. Because depending, and I see I want to be very honest here. Superman stories can tell both. And a lot of people, I think, are missing the point here. And yes, you can tell a very heartwarming, very on the nose, what's the word that they say? Very heavy handed, if you want, immigration story with Superman. However, on the other hand, you can also tell a patriotic American citizenship story with Superman. Superman fits both narratives. And I know some people may hear this and think otherwise, but if we look at the Superman canon over the years, in John Byrne's run, whether you like John Byrne's run or not is debatable, but in John Byrne's run, Superman is essentially born on American soil, making him an American citizen, because the ship in the John Byrne's run was a part of like the Kryptonians weren't giving natural births on Krypton. They were developing them using DNA, kind of like in the Man of Steel story or movie, where they're developing their lineage and then growing them in artificial wombs. And in the John Byrne story, that artificial womb is put into the spaceship, and then when the spaceship lands in Kansas, it opens up, essentially giving birth to Kal-El, and Superman is born on American soil. So in the 1986 to 2011 canon of Superman stories, he is an American-born citizen by, legal stuff, but pre-crisis, he was born on Krypton and put in a rocket. And that's kind of the general lexicon of the Superman story. But I also want people to recognize that in the John Byrne's run, that in the most what's the word? The most recognized DC universe, I guess you could say, is the post-crisis, pre-Flashpoint era. Like the prime peak era of DC Comics is that 86 to 2011 era. I know a lot of comic book fans come out of that era of my generation, and in generation before me and generations after me come out of that. So there's like 3 or 4 generations of comic book readers that recognize 86 to 2011 canon of DC as the main canon. And so with Dean Cain saying that you can't, he is, to my opinion, yeah, he's objectively wrong. I know my opinion can't be objective. I'm just saying, to me, it's objectively wrong, because that's how I feel. But I know it's stupid. So he's subjectively wrong, but he's wrong, because it didn't hurt the box office, and Superman works in both areas, and I think that it works. And Superman in general isn't just. I see a lot of people on the left-leaning side of political beliefs saying, where there's a lot of imagery that they're showing of Superman beating up Nazis from the 1940s comics, but they're also kind of ignoring the Action Comics number 58. You can look it up yourself. They're looking up some of the other racial imagery of the Japanese, and they're saying, look, Superman has been beating up Nazis this entire time, while he was also doing the saying truth, justice, and the American way, buys stamps and war bonds, while in real life the Americans are putting the Japanese in internment camps. And so Superman has been used for propaganda, and so it's like it's really hard when both sides are kind of like yelling at each other what Superman is, instead of just going, hey, let's both recognize that Superman can be both a force of government, a patriot waving the red, white, and blue, saying truth, justice, in the American way, and selling war bonds and stamps. And he can also be the champion of the oppressed, because that's what he's been. And so, even though I disagree with Dean Cain saying that, like, they shouldn't be telling immigrant stories, you can tell immigrant stories. It's very easy to tell a Superman story of an immigrant. You can say he's the super immigrant. He's the super refugee. That's who he is. But then also, he is farm boy, Kansas, Americana. He is the American dream. He is both. And he can be both for almost both sides of the aisle. And you don't have to like and agree with every story that DC publish over the almost 90 years of his history. You don't have to. Like, I personally don't like, I don't really want to read Superman in World War II. That's not really something I want to read. I may get it, if it ever gets republished, because I do collect Superman books. And so I may get it just to have that piece of history and to see it, and kind of, I may read it, but I don't really want to, you know what I'm saying? But on the other hand, like, there's stories that are written by authors that I just don't agree with, but they wrote a really good Superman story. When Mark Waid, who, definitely I would say he's one of the top Superman writers of the last 50 years. That's just who he is. His name is synonymous with Superman since the 90s. And when this last election happened, he was saying, like, oh, I'm sorry if my quality of work goes down because I can't write heroes in times of like this. I'm like, well, sorry, sir. If you are unable to do your job, we need to get you out of there and get someone who can do the job, because DC Comics needs to sell comics, and we want good Superman comics, and we do want heroic Superman comics. And so if you can't do your job, someone's got to do it for you. So, and Mark Waid actually responded to Dean Cain, and these telling Dean Cain he doesn't know what he's talking about, which I don't think he does either. But I had commented on Mark Waid's post, saying it's one of those times where you have to separate the artist from the art, because I do like the Lois and Clark TV show. When I watch the Lois and Clark TV show, I'm not going, oh man, Dean Cain is a Trump supporter and I don't like his politics and I don't like what he says about Superman on Fox News. No, I'm there to watch Superman. And I'm there to watch Superman in the 90s and have that very 90s rom-com flavor. And so, as much as I disagree with Dean Cain, I also it doesn't bother me that he says stupid things on the internet. I think we all say stupid things on the internet, and we should all just kind of not care and just kind of move on. And I'm sure in a couple months from now we'll forget all about this, but I'm talking about it. So that's my thoughts on it, and that's all I really got to say. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.